why 16th century doctors wanted this so much, and what has it got to do with 21st century business? Welcome to today's episode. My name is Tom Rowley. Excited to bring you an idea, and it relates to going back in time, back to the 16th century. Like, dude, what's going on in the 16th century? Well, up until that point, anatomy, opening up of bodies was strictly forbidden. It was forbidden by the church, and it was also, interestingly enough, forbidden in China as well. And so both of the major schools of medicine of the world had a strict ban on being able to look at the anatomy of the body. Now, why was this? Was this some kind of like, well, we just don't want you to look? No, there was a clear reason for it. Why? Because people got sick and they spread illness. If you cut open a body in the 16th century, it was highly likely that you were going to transmit bacteria, transmit illness, and people would get sick. And they didn't have antibiotics back then. They just knew that if you cut up the bodies, people died, and so it was banned. Now, this had a interesting consequence. The consequence was that the doctors and whoever was doing medicine at the time didn't know anatomy. They didn't know. All they could see was the outside of us as human beings. They're like, man, I don't know what's going on in there. But presumably they could feel, they could feel different parts of the body, and they in China, they definitely knew that there was pulse. Like, it was like, okay, cool. We can feel this kind of regular rhythm of a fluid running. I don't know if they knew it was a fluid. They probably had a guess at that. What was interesting was that the only time that the acupuncturists in China got to see the bodies was in battle. Like, they would go to the battlefield after the battle was open and look, and they go, oh, look at that. Look, there's intestines there, or perhaps there was someone cut in half, and they're like, oh, okay, well, wow, look at that. What is that? Is that some kind of thing? It's pretty interesting. But in the 16th century, some courageous, perhaps foolhardy, perhaps stupid people, doctors, decided to start taking bodies and examining them, opening them up. And again, they didn't know about bacteria, so somehow they got away with it, but they started seeing the anatomy, and they're opening up the bodies, and they say, oh, wow, there's a heart, and there's lungs, and there's a liver, and there's intestines, and there's spleen, and there's kidneys, and like, oh, wow, okay, that's how the urine system is working. Look, the kidneys are joined to the bladder, and that must be like some kind of filtering system. I mean, this must have been unbelievable information. They're like, oh, wow, okay, the pulses is coming from the heart. But remember, the bodies were dead, so they might not have known that. All they could go is, okay, hang on, we're feeling something at here. All right, and that there's a bunch of structures in the wrist. Like, they might not have known which ones were which. But this is a fascinating experience as humans begin to learn about our own bodies. Our own bodies are amazing systems. Like, we are essentially a collection of systems that operate as a single organism. So what's all this got to do with business? Well, right now, most businesses, at least small, maybe medium, struggle with the anatomy and the physiology, so the structure and the function of... All right, we're back. Random. All right, so they struggle with the structure and the function, the anatomy and the physiology of systems. Now, this is interesting. This is an interesting problem. It's like going back in time to when we didn't know about the human body. It's like a mystery. It's like, goodness, how is this stuff working? But when you get to understand what a system is and how it functions, suddenly you get the structure that consistently makes systems work. This is exciting. This is the underlying insight that made medicine work. When we knew about the organs, suddenly medicine began to become more functional. It was like, oh, okay, maybe that's what's going on. That's what's going on. What should we do? And this is possible for your business as well. This is a really interesting insight. You're like, oh man, if only we knew how things worked. If only we knew how to get our people to do their work consistently and create consistent results. You see, that's systems that do that. The systems are the structure that allow your people to get the work done. When you allow people just to do whatever they want to get the work done, anything can happen. People are hard to manage. Like, we do a lot of funny things. We forget about things. We do things out of order. We don't think clearly. And so the results in your business are inconsistent. Some days it's good. Some days it's bad. In E-Myth, he speaks of going to the barber. And the barber on the first time provides a great service. On the second time, it's a different service. It wasn't as good. The third time, it's kind of halfway between. He's like, man, I'm not coming here. Why? Because of inconsistency. And when you don't understand systems, it will affect everything in your business. Your marketing, your sales, your advertising, your fulfillment, let alone your optics and your accounting and your taxes. And all of these things are being driven by one underlying factor, and that is your ability to run systems. That's essentially what you need. You get that, everything rises in your business. There is nothing, in my personal opinion, that makes such a big difference. Like, you could go to a workshop that looks at sales or fulfillment or taxes or accounting, and yes, you will get better at that particular aspect, but it will not be the global improvement that comes when you understand systems. Suddenly you can take all of your past work that you've done, you're like, oh, I can see how this makes it a system. I'm going to take this marketing strategy for working out how to create my avatar, or this marketing strategy to work out how to create a great offer. And I'm going to create the system for that. And it's like, okay, and out comes that clear avatar, out comes that clear offer. Same with sales, how to make a funnel, how to make a webinar, how to have whatever you want for your sales. For your advertising, how are you going to run your paid ads? Through a system. How are you going to do your SEO? Through a system. How are you going to do your content strategy? Through a system. How are you going to fulfill? Through a system. And all of that work that you've done before suddenly starts to make sense, because it's coming out of a book, out of a seminar, out of the workshop, and into a system that your business can use day in, day out. Let alone the improvements that you can make to it, because now you can see your work. This is a transformation that can happen for you when you focus on the anatomy and the physiology, also known as the structure and the function of systems. If you want some help with this, head over to systemio.dev. Love to help you out. Thanks for tuning in. I got to go and have a skin check, which is one of the more systematic approaches of medicine. It's like, okay, we're going to do this, check all the body. If something comes up, then they run with that. All right, that's all I got for you today. Thanks so much for tuning in for this episode on the power of systems to create results. I look forward to seeing you on tomorrow's episode as we continue the journey then. See you then.